Shep, I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to talk to you. You've been at this a long time, focused on culture and service and all those things, involved with a lot of companies over a long period of time. At Pinnacle, our mantra here is to deliver distinctive service and effective advice. That's really how we go to market. That's what we try to do to differentiate ourselves from Wells Fargo Bank, Truist Bank, Bank of America, all those sorts of companies. And so, at any rate, that's sort of who we are. One of the ways we try to grow and propel ourselves as service providers is we utilize book clubs. And as you now know, we chose Amaze Every Customer Every Time, one of your more recent books, and it's perfectly suited to who we are and what we do here. So I guess I'm interested, maybe it'd be useful to hear you explain what amazement is. What is amazement and how does it play through a business organization?
Sure. And thank you again for, buying the books for the team. Love that you did this. I'm excited to partner with you on this. So my whole concept of amazement, it's not about being over the top and blowing people away with the most incredible service that they've ever had. That will happen when there's really what I would call the rainy day syndrome. It's like you wait for the rainy day to cash, when you need that money. Well, you have to do the same thing with the over top experiences. Those come when the customer client calls, has a real issue, and you've got to do something out of the ordinary to take care of them. However, to me, amazing companies don't need to wait for rainy days to be amazing. They simply need to be consistent and predictable with the experiences that they have. So I'll give you an example. What we want is the word always to be followed by something positive. For example, they are always so helpful. They're always so knowledgeable. It's basically you're saying you always do what's expected. And by the way, even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them to take care of me. And that's where you might have that, problem, issue, emergency, if you will. But the other part of amazement is that if you look at on a scale of 1 to 5, it doesn't matter if it's 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 0 to 10. If what is average? Well, on 1 to 5, if 1 is bad and 5 is great, average is in the middle. And what do you have to do to be a 5? You don't need to perform at the level of 5 all the time, although you should strive to do that. What you need to do is just be a little bit better than average, predictably and consistently, and never drop in to that level of what I would call average or mediocrity. And by the way, if there is a problem, and there will be problems, ideally you're in a situation where you're presented with the problem, and that's when you take care of it, and your customers and clients say, you know what, I love doing business with them. Even when I have a question or a problem, they always take care of me. So a little better than average, consistently and predictably. And let me just jump into another company. I know in the book we use Ace Hardware as a feature throughout the book. This isn't a book about Ace Hardware. It's a book about a brand that everybody knows, recognizes, and has probably done business with, so they can relate to it. Well, the Ritz-Carlton, one of my favorite companies to work with, and I've gotten to know Horst Schultz over the years, not well, but I asked him, what does it take to be an iconic brand like Ritz-Carlton, known throughout the world for great service and experience? And he says, it's not what you think it is. It's just we're a little bit better than average all the time. I go, exactly. How much better do you have to be? He said about 10% better. Now think about that. On a scale of 1 to 5, if 3 is average, you got to be a 3.3. Now that seems like a pretty low bar. But the key, and I said this before, is consistency and predictability, and that's the hard part. So if you are consistently and predictably meeting your clients and customers' expectations, and that means you do exactly what they expect, they can never want to take a risk on taking a chance on a competitor and doing business elsewhere.
It's so funny to hear you say that. One of the things that we talk about in our orientation sessions is that you probably cannot wow every person that you come in contact with in a day, but you can likely wow one a day. And so if you multiply that across 3,500 associates, 250 days a year, boy, you can blow a lot of people away. And again, to your point, you got to have a lot of routine exchanges. You got to cash checks and and take deposits and, do a lot of routine things. But to get those done with an engaged spirit and then seize those one a day kind of opportunities where you could do something really special for somebody, that's really what our aim has been here for a long time.
I love that idea. And then on top of that, if you look at every other interaction, which seems like it would be normal, and I'm just going to be, I'm going to share the most basic example I can think of. I called you to get my bank balance. Okay. You can't wow me by telling me what my bank balance is. But the way you handle it, the first impression, the way the phone was answered, and I know when I was doing research on your company, one of the things was that we answer the phone. I think
Right.
that may be a lost art today with some companies.
I promise you, it is so funny. We started this company 24 years ago. Man, I talk to clients all the time, everywhere, and I promise you, the most frequently mentioned thing somebody will say to me is, "Terry, thank you for having a company where people answer the phone."
Yeah,
So many of our competitors, you're gonna have to push this button, push that button, go here, go there. You may get in a do loop. You may never get out of that thing. But here, it's everybody's responsibility to get the phone answered in 3 rings. I tell this story all the time. We when we just started the bank, we went out to call on a client I'd known for a long time, and we had a nice conversation. We began to focus more on getting them to move their business. And he said, "Terry, why should I move from brand X where you used to be, where there's a branch on every corner, and come to you?" I said, "Well, the main reason is because we're going to look after you, really. And when I say that, I'm telling you, if you call us up, somebody will pick that phone up in 3 rings and they'll solve your problem." He leaned up on his desk. He said, "What's the number?" And dialed the number, and Alice picked it up on the second ring, and we got his business. So anyway, it is a really simple thing, but it's kind of an example of what you're talking about.
yeah. And by the way, it's basics. To me, it's table stakes to deliver the service. And now let's talk about that phone call. The phone rings, somebody picks it up on the second or third ring. That's great. But now, how is that first tone? What is that for? And I talk about this in the book. It's managing first impressions and last impressions. How is that phone answered? You're setting the tone for whatever conversation is to follow. And you don't know why that customer client is calling you. You're just assuming you're there to take care of them. But the way you start the conversation off, the way you manage it, the way you demonstrate your knowledge and your expertise. And by the way, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know who to go to get the information or where to go to. And it's okay if you need to pass somebody off, although the way you do it doesn't make somebody feel like, well, this is not my department. I'm sending you somewhere else blindly or coldly. There's a way of working as a team that makes people on the outside, the customers and clients, feel like, okay, this is a place where everybody owns the experience they have, even if they have somebody helping them or taking over the experience, and creating that positive impression, that positive experience. And again, I mentioned the first impression. The last impression is also important of that interaction because it leaves a lasting impression and it sets up for what's going to happen thereafter. And by the way, when our clients start to experience this again and again, they start to recognize that word always pops up. And I'll say what I said a few moments ago. If we do this right, our clients would say, why would we want to take a chance on doing business anywhere else? This is where I need to be.
Shep, it's interesting to me. A lot of these service principles are timeless. They've sort of always worked that way and so forth. That said, I think we live in a different day and a different time. COVID's had far-reaching impacts on how work gets done and all those kinds of things. Do you have a thought about how service levels work today versus how they may have worked pre-COVID?
Yeah, pre-COVID, I wrote a book titled The Convenience Revolution. It was all about being really easy to do business with, convenient, maybe stepping out. I actually used the bank as an example where their hours were extended. I jokingly say sometimes I feel that banks are marketing to the unemployed because when you try to go do business with them, it's like, when do I have time to go to the bank? It's either right after work or on a weekend or even anyway, you get the idea. But the whole idea is how convenient can we be? Well, what happened during COVID is we were forced to become the convenient company that we needed to be. And that means everything that we did that was in person, now we needed to come up with a way where people could do business with us online, over the phone, maybe, like we're on a call right now, a video call. Video became really, really powerful back then. But basically what happened is we found different ways to work around the problem. And they ended up to be easier and more convenient in some ways. And so I believe when we came out of COVID, we didn't go back to the old way. We found ways that were better. So some of our clients today love that self-service option. And even though we will pick up the phone and take care of it, we still need to be aware that depending upon the age of our clients, and we do research every year, we know that a younger client, about just over 50%, just barely over 50%, will reach out to you on the phone. They prefer that as their number one method. But on the flip side, about 47, 48% say, you know what? I want to see if I can get this done by myself quicker. Go online, log into my account, take a look at what I need. I get my information and move on. So you make an easy, frictionless system for them. Now, a little bit older generation, let's call ourselves the baby boomers. I think you and I can relate to that, right? The boomers, 80 some odd percent prefer to go to the phone first. And only 20% or so would say, you know what, I'd like that self-service solution first. So we need to recognize who our customers are, and we know they're wide and varied. So in our business, we need, when I say our business, it's your business, but I'm kind of excited. You bought my book. I'm part of your team now, right? Yeah, I believe it's important to recognize that we've got different customers that expect different things. Post-COVID, they expect an easier, and many of them expect that self-service solution. But at the same time, we have to make sure we don't lose the relationship. If all we are is a technology company, that makes us a commodity because anybody can duplicate technology.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think for us, as I said, our mantra here is to deliver distinctive service and effective advice. So we're trying to compete based on that idea right there: better service, better advice than what peers are able to offer. And so a lot of times people think, service can be defined a lot of ways by different people. Some people view it to be your hours of operation. Some people view it to be how friendly and personal you are. Some people view it to be how easy it is to navigate your online site, all those sorts of things. So there's a lot of variability in that. But for our company, what we're trying to do is make sure that the whole of the service experience is great. Make sure we've invested in technology. We have to always be in a position to be a fast follower. We compete against JP Morgan, who spends $11 billion a year on technology, which substantially exceeds our budget here. But we can win. We can follow quickly with our systems. And the overall differentiator is the personal experience. And so I tell people all the time, even in our call center, a call center for most banks is the backbone of it is technology. It's all intended to be efficient, effective, minimize call times, all those kinds of things. Here we're using technology, but the idea is somebody's going to pick up that phone in 3 rings and try to solve your problem. And so that's a pretty differentiated level of service.
So this is what the best companies do, and they have found the balance between technology and the people-to-people or human experience. And it sounds to me that's exactly what you're doing. The other thing, you've created a great mantra, and I love that: distinctive service, and of course the advice. That's the part of your product, but the service aspect of it. You mentioned to me already in the short time we've had together, you have onboarding. How you're training, and it's really your bank's personality is what it's the culture of the company. So your culture is obviously working for you. You recognize the benefits to what you're doing and how it fits into a competitive landscape against some of those larger, you mentioned JP Morgan, huge budget just for technology. So what are you doing to keep this mantra in front of people all the time and get them to act and work? So I'm going to ask you that question.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It is important. Our company's enjoyed extraordinary success. Over our 24-year history, we've produced the second highest total shareholder return of all the publicly traded banks in the United States. as sort of the end game. We've created a differentiated experience. Greenwich Associates would tell you that our net promoter score is the second highest in the nation. It's the highest in the Southeast where we compete. And so that client experience is what's producing the shareholder returns. But on this idea of culture, so many people underestimate the way that we built that client experience was we built the associate experience. You know, one of the book clubs we did was a book by Joel Manby called Love Works. And one of the things he says is, man, you'll never get the client experience to exceed that of the associate experience. And so again, we're dogged about our associate experience and making sure that we're amazing our associates in the recruitment process and the onboarding process, all those kinds of things. Some of the things that are really important and how we, you know, inculcate the culture and keep it going and so forth. You mentioned the idea of onboarding. Every associate that gets hired in our 8-state footprint is going to start on a Monday in Nashville, Tennessee. They're going to go to lunch with a class of peers that are all in the same situation they're in. And the first person they're going to hear from is me about what we do here, what makes us different from Wells Fargo Bank or Truist Bank or Bank of America, or any of those banks that we compete with. We'll bring them back to Nashville and spend a 3-day period where we really dig deep into what are our values, what is the vision of this company, what's the how do you get rewarded here, how do you produce a shareholder return, why should you care about a shareholder return, all those sorts of things where we involve everybody in immersion of those topics. Those are important ideas. Our incentive plans are really important here. I think you know, people tend to tune you out when you start talking about incentive plans and so forth. But here's what's important. In this company, everybody participates. There may be a bank somewhere that does it, but I hadn't found them yet, that includes 100% of the people in annual cash incentives. And not only that, but the way we get paid is based on producing big picture outcomes like growing our revenues and growing our earnings. And so that's a really simple idea that everybody can understand and everybody can get around. And we don't have systems where I win by cheating you or you win by cheating me. We don't have systems that are set up where I win by cheating the client or doing something bad for the client. It's just simple, straightforward stuff there. And so that idea of drawing everybody together in a common cause through those incentive plans and so forth has been a really important part of how we maintain this culture as we grow.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote an article recently and I titled it The Employee Hierarchy of Needs, and it kind of matched the Maslow hierarchy of needs that we learned growing up in school and taking whatever, you know, classes we took. Most of us know that. But at the base of the pyramid, as it goes up, you basically have compensation. This is what people want. And maybe there's incentive, but it sounds like you give people education, which is an opportunity to grow mentally. You also give them the opportunity to grow within the organization, but ultimately what you're looking for is fulfillment from your employees. So I'm going to go back to something as you started to share your ideas on culture. You mentioned how important that employee experience is, because this is what drives fulfillment to the tip of the pyramid. In the book, Amaze Every Customer Every Time, I talk about that employee experience. I refer to something I love to call the employee golden rule. We know the golden rule: do unto others as you want done unto yourself. There's the platinum rule that Tony Alexander came up with: do unto others as they want done unto them. But how about the employee rule, which is treat the people you work with, our associates, the way we want our clients and customers treated. And if we treat them at least that good, maybe even better, you know, this is modeling the behavior. It's emulating the behavior that we want our people to go out and deliver day in and day out, not only to our clients, but also to our fellow associates as well.
You spent a little time on it, but I think it'd be helpful just to crystallize again on why you chose ACE. Again, in our company, you know, we believe we're delivering a differentiated level of service based on our associate experience and turning it into a shareholder return. You chose ACE. Run through that one more time for all our people here. What is it that makes them worthy of?
Sure. Great question. So the book I wrote prior to this book had 50 case studies, 50 different companies to represent all the different ideas that I was talking about. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to find a company that I could write about and come up with all ideas and just use a common case study. It isn't, and I mentioned it isn't a book about Ace Hardware. It's more of a book that uses them as a case study. They're recognized. So I've been doing some work with them. I was hired to do a speech, actually a number of speeches, but I'm sitting around that morning having breakfast with the executives, the CEO, the VP of sales, everybody. We're getting ready to go talk to a bunch of brand new dealers that just signed on and became officially under the ACE flag. And they said, "What are you doing, Shep?" I said, "Well, I'm working on a book. Unfortunately, the company that I was going to use is having some issues, and I don't think the timing's right." I told them what I was doing, case study, one company throughout the book. And they said, "Well, why don't you write about us?" Now, I was looking for a brand that is recognized for great service. And I asked them, I point blank said, "Well, here's what I'm looking for. If I were to walk outside and say, give me the 10 best companies in the world of customer service that you've ever done business with," if I was just like talking to people on the street, "do you think Ace Hardware would show up in the top 10? Oh, absolutely, absolutely." Well, of course they would say that, you know. So I said, "Well, can you prove it?" And they pulled out a current issue of Business Week. And in it, it listed the top 25 brands for customer service. And Ace Hardware was listed as number 10, ahead of the Ritz-Carlton. And it was based on lots of social media reviews and ratings and looking at a number of different ways that success was measured. I went, wow, I'm going to take a look at this. And then I realized nobody's ever written about this company like this before, but everybody knows who they are. They have over 4,700 locations right now in over 70 countries. And just like we have branches or we have offices throughout the Southeast, they have dealerships in, all different types of communities, large, small, city, urban, in the country. It doesn't matter. So this is a great example. So that was why I chose them. And what I learned is, as I talk to people, they agree. Yeah, I go to the Ace. They are really knowledgeable. I never have to look for a good parking spot because every spot's a good parking spot. And I just looked at that whole service experience and said, yeah, this is a company worth writing about. So that's the background on that.
That's fabulous. I'll say this. So over 24 years, if we've done 2 books a year, that's 48 books. One of the really frequent responses people have when they read the book is, "Terry, man, you could have written this. This sounds just like something you'd say." And I laughingly say, well, there's a reason for that. I only choose the ones that say what I want said. There are other people saying different things, and I don't choose those books. But this is one that I agree with. I never agree with 100% of what I read, but this is probably as close as any I've seen to sort of what I believe our formula has to be here at Pinnacle, how we go to market, how we win, and kind of what explains the great success that we've had through our first 2.5 decades here.
Well, congratulations on that. Like I said, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, not too far from Nashville, but far enough away that I'm not exposed to your bank. However, in the bit of research that I did, I said, okay, I like what they say. And then to know that your mantra, at least the first half, is all focused on service. And by the way, if you take that delivering distinctive service and you turn that into a question as you're talking to somebody, you can ask them, do you think the way we just handled that last interaction with our client is in a way that you would refer to as distinctive service? And they will either say yes or no. And ideally, you want them to say yes. So what drives that? And, this is where the training and everything else comes in. The tools that I have in the book, Amaze Every Customer Every Time, some of those could be non-negotiable behaviors. Like, what are the non-negotiables that your people have that, answering the phone by the third ring, that's a non-negotiable behavior for your bank.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate your work. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you
much.
so much. And I appreciate you guys. And hopefully one day I'll get to see you all in person.
Look forward to that.
All right. Thank you.
You can bring one of those guitars with you.
By the way, everybody should know, My office is about 2 doors away, 2 buildings away, and it had a flood, and all of the fire safety equipment shorted out. And until they replace that, they will not allow anybody in the building for safety purposes. So I'm working at home, and all these guitars. I thought, well, you're in Nashville. This is perfect. I don't need to change the background. This is really where I live.
That's it.
And by the way, you'd think I'd be a better guitar player than I am with all those guitars back there, but no, it's just a fun hobby, and I'm having a good time.
Good.
Well, thank you
Great speaking
again.
with you.
Appreciate you, and I look forward to the next time we have a chance to work together.
All right. Thank you, Shep.